the midst of a huge transformation where our peers, communities, and workplaces are all really melding into one. Welcome to Reimagining Company Culture. My name is Christina Giordano, she, her, and hers, and I am the Senior Partnerships Manager here at AllVoices. Today, I am very excited to welcome our next guest onto the interview series, Lisa Gutierrez. She is the Chief People Officer at Fast Paced Health. Lisa, thank you so much for being here. If you want to kick us off by sharing a little bit about yourself, including your pronouns and when you were younger, do you remember how exactly you answered the question, what do you want to be when you grow up?
Absolutely, absolutely. So when I was basically growing up, I don't think I ever saw myself really in an HR career, but here's where I'm at. And my career actually has spanned a lot of different ways. I started actually as a practicing labor and employment attorney, working really with HR professionals. That happened for I worked really with unions, management altogether, working on labor and employment issues, sexual harassment, race discrimination. What I really loved about that was the issues. But what I also saw about the profession is basically two different levels of individuals. And this isn't, I think there was a proactive aspect and there was also a reactive aspect in terms of HR, what you were looking at in terms of the areas, what you were looking at in terms of maybe being scared of a legal issue. And I think, that's our society we live in altogether. After practicing for a couple of years, I enjoy work. It's something that I've done my entire life. I came from a family that I would say is the typical American dream. We hardworking. My grandparents actually came from Mexico with 9 children and really focus on the value of education and the value of what we do here in this country. Through that particular aspect, my father actually went to medical school. With 4 daughters, there was a big push of education for all of us, and that's really started our path. But within that path of push for education, it was also a push on working as hard as you can, giving back to everything that you have. And the gifts that we all can bring together to really continue to improve not only our family, but continue to improve society as a whole. That particular part of my background actually also went into the work environment because as I looked at HR and I looked at practicing law, I also thought, gosh, if we bring this into the work environment with my legal background, I think I can do this better and create a better culture along with something that I really term right now as preventative medicine. What do we do in terms of putting in policies, putting in practices to reduce legal exposure altogether from a company standpoint, but additionally making a great environment for employees and making a great place for people to not only grow their careers, but to enjoy what they're doing every single time and enjoy the environment and what we're doing for whatever that end result is. So my background actually then left law, made this decision to go into what I determined now is the HR career. I spent the first 10 years actually in the hotel industry, becoming very fortunate, worked for a company, Four Seasons Hotels. I really thought that was an amazing experience on all levels, where the gift really was understanding that employees are so important to that end product goal, and the employees really are your product. I left the hotel industry and actually went into the healthcare industry, into the startups, which is where I really understood the value of taking that experience from law and from employees and what I had learned in the hotel industry, bringing it into healthcare and what you do in terms of the healthcare patient experience and bringing in that value of employees all together. Worked through an organization called ATI Physical Therapy. ATI was at that particular time very small, about 20 clinics, and worked through growth, bringing it up to, when I left, about 480 clinics. And from about, under 200 employees to when I left was almost 5,000 employees.
Oh, wow.
I went actually then into another startup, CleverSafe. CleverSafe was the tech industry. Again, same type of theory in terms of, the value of employees and that value that you bring to your end product. Worked with CleverSafe as a company. And from CleverSafe actually was acquired into IBM, spent some time with IBM, fantastic company, fantastic experience. And then actually went back into healthcare with a company where I am now is Fast Paced. So again, really the journey coming into HR was this transformation from understanding and bringing in my legal background, but at the same time, the value of what employees do and the value of what bringing those two pieces together and company culture do towards people in general, our lives, and then additionally that work product and that end result for the business.
I love that. Thank you for sharing your story, especially with the foundation for that value for education, and with your family, and also just your journey throughout the industry, in a bunch of different organizations. And we've seen kind of the human resources, people operations, kind of teams and department really evolve overall over the past 20 years, but also really quickly over the past 2 years as well.
Yes.
Your experience, do you still think there are kind of misconceptions around people, human resources teams today?
I do. I think that it's definitely better. And I think that the pandemic, we've got to look at the pandemic. There are some bright spots. We've had a lot of horrible spots. We all know that, and we don't need to dwell on the horrible. We all know what they are, but there are bright spots. And I think for the HR career, it was really understanding, gosh, there's so many different things of what we need to do, not only to keep the business moving, but pivot quickly, and the value of what you can do from different listening to your employees, and the value of bringing those personal aspects of life together. Now, but HR is still, going to your question, is there still ways to go? I think so. It's all really what they view and what we can bring together, and that importance of individuals, and how we're going to move forward from COVID, how we're going to move forward from what we're doing. And are we going to regress backwards and just think, oh gosh, they just process paperwork, or are these programs still really necessary as we go into it? And in my opinion, I think that we've definitely gone through a transformation, and I think that there's some amazing people, HR professionals, that are continuing to push the envelope to ensure that we work and partner with our CEOs and our C-suite to show what we can do all together.
Absolutely. Seeing these kind of teams and leaders as a strategic business partner, really working with leaders across the organization as well. As you said at the beginning of our conversation, to employees and kind of your team members are your greatest asset. They're working with customers, they're working with clients, they know the product really well and really are on the front lines. I know in our previous conversation, you're working on a lot of different projects, and one of them is around making sure enabling and investing in folks to do their best work. What would you say, Lisa, is your current employee value proposition, and what is your aspirational one?
So I think, healthcare has obviously been a very difficult aspect in the last couple of years. And I think our current value proposition, and I'd like to start with our goals, because I think we have to look at where we go and where are we going to actually say, what are we doing now to get there? So our goal obviously is to be a premier employer for all of healthcare, in terms of the communities we serve and in terms of the patient experience that we provide all together. What does that mean and what we're doing now? Well, it means a couple of different things. As we grow in fast pace, it means careers for our communities and for our employees. Fast pace is basically set in the rural communities. So we have these smaller clinics, and we have smaller environments in terms of our populations that we serve, and in areas that typically are looked at as underserved areas for healthcare, where healthcare may have been leaving. Fast pace, this is where we go in to continue to provide excellent healthcare. So as an employer, not only are we providing excellent healthcare, I look at it as providing excellent careers. And careers not only for today, but for tomorrow. Fast pace is full of growth. We can actually go into communities where we have programs for our employees coming in where, training them to become a medical assistant, from a medical assistant, training them to become a clinic coordinator, which is a step up in terms of beginning supervisory responsibilities. We also creating a structure of regional responsibilities in that for more career growth into other different clinics. So these are opportunities that we can provide for our communities, but for our employees also, in terms of fantastic career and fantastic healthcare. So our value proposition is not only excellent, healthcare, but excellent careers for everybody, but then excellent support in your life. And I don't want to, leave that out at all, because I think it's the most important part of that partnership, that what employees and companies can do together for each other, is making sure it's not just about coming to work. And I think COVID has, really, really shown a big light on that. It's how do we support each other when the kids are running around, or when, when there's a quarantine happening, and we need different flexible work environments to help individuals do that partnership of life, balance, and success at work. So I think those are other different things that we're doing today, and we'll continue to expand those programs. For example, in our clinics, where our shifts are for certain individuals who want that 3 days a week at 12 hours, and then the following week at 4 days a week at 12 hours. Those are full-time positions. We have also 8-hour week positions that provide more of a traditional schedule. Obviously, we're healthcare, so those positions are within clinics, and so our flexibility is about schedules. In our corporate office, obviously everybody went home in March, just like everybody else in 2020. But what we also did in September is take our entire revenue circle and move that particular role 100% remote at that time. And revenue cycle is a fantastic role in terms of billing and collecting. We have over 200 employees in that particular department. We expanded opportunities across the country, but then we also expanded flexibility, hours that individuals can work, and career growth that way. We've also then put in learning and development programs virtually. So how can you manage while we continue to expand that department? So support, flexibility, career growth, and then obviously different ways we can continue to work together while we move forward.
Absolutely. That support and really an authentic investment in career growth. It sounds like there has been changes to flexibility and schedules too, and recognizing all the different hats that folks might be wearing outside of work as well. And we know that there's a ton of research that shows when you are more connected to the work and when you're more connected to your team, the outcome will be better. You're more likely to stay as well. Can you tell me a little bit about kind of new team members who join, what the onboarding process looks like? How are those meaningful moments of connection created?
Absolutely. So again, we've definitely involved this through the pandemic. What we actually do is have a virtual orientation program. All of our employees, regardless of the position, start together, and we run this program every Monday. So people are not going into a clinic or going into the department without first going to orientation. And that orientation is going through our company history. It's going through our culture. It's going through those, obviously, the necessary parts of employees, your paycheck, how you look for those different things and benefits. But additionally, then some compliance important issues, not only about HIPAA, which is obviously an interesting and the most important rule that we hear in healthcare, but respect. We can talk about the words harassment, we can talk about discrimination and all of those important aspects, but we bring it down to one thing of our values. It's all about respect, how we treat each other and how we treat our patients. And so we want to start with that before anybody goes through of this is not about just, it's our culture and respecting differences of each other and how we embrace that and what we do when we have different types of problems. So our orientation is value driven, what our product is, our company history, and where we're going all together, along with those necessary aspects of compliance that are part of obviously healthcare in every company. The second aspect of what we then move forward to is then training within every particular department, and each are different. Obviously, if you're going into clinic, your particular role is going to be a little different there, and working with your preceptor as a nurse practitioner, or working then with your nurses or whatever position that is. For our virtual departments for revenue cycle and what we call corporate, which is support, again, they go through each particular department with moving forward all together. In my particular department, people, I think that, and this is something I started years ago, we support and we work together as that partnership. And this goes back to your question in terms of what do we do to make sure as HR professionals we're becoming partners and not just, a secondary seat. I require my department before we're starting jobs to actually go out into the operations. We can't treat patients, but we can answer phones. Mm-hmm. We can drive along and go on clinic visits. We can understand what they're doing every single day. So I want every particular employee that joins our team here in the people department to spend time in the operation before they come on board. So we understand what is that business and how can we support and how can we partner.
Absolutely. When you talk about kind of everything, the actions being rooted in the values, and especially with respect, having respect for everybody's different role, really leaning in and pitching we can is really important too. And you talked about, especially in a hybrid environment, kind of different schedules, working longer hours, but shorter
Mhm.
work week perhaps too. Have you also thought about how you're redefining what quote unquote employee engagement looks like as well in a hybrid environment?
Absolutely. And I think we're going to continue to evolve it, right? We're trying a lot of different things right now, and we're putting in different surveys in place to see, are we on point, are we off point, and where do we need to continue to refine. So what examples that I can give you is actually a leadership program that we're working with some of our supervisors who are only then managing virtually. How can we embrace that growth? Because obviously face to face and video, it's hard. We all were thrown into it 2 years ago, and we didn't have the time to connect, as people that we all were used to. So putting in these types of programs virtually, but then I think most importantly, following up and pivoting very quickly when it's not working. And so we continue to do that. Additionally, what we've actually started in our revenue cycle, which is our complete remote team, is bringing in supervisors quarterly at this particular point to also really focus simply on team building and additional learning. But we're kind of looking at compliance training as something we can do virtually altogether, and then looking at what can we do as interaction, what's most important part for a people connection, and moving towards these types of engagements of team building. So we're looking at it in all different departments a little differently. We have, so that's in support. If you think about it from fast pace, we have 180 different locations by state. So
Yeah.
really that is hybrid. You're still working, virtually, you haven't met people. Last year, we started an annual leadership conference. And so that was the first one that we held. I will say that was delayed from 2 years. We actually planned it a couple of times, and COVID obviously had different minds in that. But that particular conference is the same way. Focus on leadership, focus on where we're going as a company, and focus on culture. And again, move compliance and what we're doing to an ongoing aspect of your business, and handling that locally within the management of the four walls with clinics. So again, we're trying all these different things. We're going to continue to survey how that works, and then follow up. Are these different things working? Are they not working? So we continue to make sure we're on point. So like the rest of the world, fast pace has to continue to evolve as we move into this new phase.
Yeah, that evolution, the iteration, and also having that kind of feedback loop as well to see what's working, what needs improvement, and what ideas
Mm-hmm.
that the team has as well is also really important. And we've been talking about a lot of internal changes, and we know that there have been ripple effects to a lot of organizations and progressive kind of people teams doing things, and other people also want to model that as well. So, what would you kind of say is fast-paced health like? Unique role in setting the tone to be a really forward thinking organization in the healthcare industry?
I think there's two different aspects. I think the first is actually, I'm going to utilize the word patient experience, which I'm going to completely go into from my hotel days of the customer experience. And looking at that from the level that every employee is part of the team, treat others how you wish to be treated, and move forward on really bringing in, I'm going to use the word customer experience again, but we obviously term it as patient experience.
Yeah.
So I do think that is a differentiating factor altogether that we bring together. I love that aspect of the hotel industry, and I think it's innate in who I am as an individual, and how I've created what I believe is the right structure for a people department, regardless of where I've been. And I continue to look at that as how you treat individuals on all different aspects to continue to move forward. And I think the similarities of those two are very, very critical. And similar to when you think about a hotel, in healthcare, everybody has a piece. When you walk into a clinic, the first person you're seeing is not the person treating you. The first person is your front desk. You're looking around the clinic to see, is it clean? Is it pleasant? That's everybody's work, not your treating physician, not your treating mid-level, your nurse practitioner. So that experience altogether takes a village, and it takes every one of our individuals. Your next step, obviously, in the journey, maybe how the clinic is the setup of the clinic. That's our facilities team, right? The next step would be your person who's taking your vitals, your nurse, your MA. You haven't even seen your provider yet in healthcare, but all of those people are making that experience together to make sure this is what's perfect. So again, we term it all together, and we term what we do as a company for our employees to understand how they all fit within that piece. And then finally, obviously, your provider who's treating you and seeing how you're doing in the follow-up. And then last step is actually billing and collecting, right? Yeah. And not always the most fun part of your job. You're calling because your bill doesn't work, you don't understand it. That's a tough place to be. But again, how you treat customer service, how you deal with a patient, how you deal with a problem is still part of the experience altogether. And we look at that all in terms of what we do of our patient experience. So I look at that as one of our first things that we look at as differentiating. And again, bringing those things all together in that philosophy. I think that the next step and what we look at as differentiating ourselves, it's really, besides that patient experience and quality healthcare, specific is us going into those rural communities and providing that within these communities and providing those career growth opportunities and excellent care that everyone in this country deserves and in the world.
Absolutely. I 100% agree with you there. And also just understanding the patient experience, the customer experience, everyone has a role to play. Everyone is a vital part of the team too, and understanding that in the big picture, making sure people feel that as well from leadership and just the team throughout their employee experience is really important. And again, with iteration and feedback and all of the changes everybody was forced into as well, people of course want systems to be designed for equity and be dynamic. Can you tell me about how you've redesigned the system to be more equitable recently as well?
So I think in terms of redesigning systems, my style is actually to tear something completely apart with. Yes. You look at something and say, okay, these are the great things, but I do like to tear something apart and see how we need to rebuild it. I like to map for certain products, and I actually like to look at metrics. I think that that's an important part. And again, going back to how do we as an HR profession continue to make sure we're, being seen as strategic, continuing to be part of those discussions. It's actually also making sure we're talking the language of business and having different metrics that we're evaluating ourselves about and against. So I think every particular process we look at has to be tied to something, or look at how we're going to measure it in terms of how we define success. So my style is actually to work within a team, work within the people who are closest to it, define what I think is the problem, but basically then let my team design where it is, have touch points along the way, and then most importantly, how are we going to measure it? And if it's not working, I believe in, I think the best thing that we can say is believe in failure and embrace failure, because if you didn't fail, you didn't try. Absolutely. And so, but also understanding is when you look at that, how do we decide that it fails? And then what did we do to pivot to make it succeed? So again, I think every process we look at kind of includes that, but the aspect of including all the team members who are closest to it, get your feedback together, getting that feedback from what's broken, from operations, scalability, obviously, because I've been in growth companies, that's a super important part. And then your metrics to define it, allowing the ability to fail, and then allowing the ability to pivot for ultimate success.
Yeah, I think measuring that success is really important as well, and kind of setting those metrics up to ensure that people know what success looks like, what is the definition of it, having those key performance metrics too. And I think there's been a lot of conversations around the changing role of leaders and new managers who are tenured and are trying to kind of manage across distance and in a hybrid environment as well. When you reflect on your leadership, leading the people team, and think about other managers at the company, how do you measure effectiveness there?
I think the same way. I look at measuring effectiveness between, I think there's, turnover, but really when you define voluntary turnover.
Yeah.
I don't, if you're looking at and saying everything, I think you're missing the mark, because I think part of the aspect of a good leader is sometimes making tough decisions, and that's a hard thing to say and a hard thing sometimes to hear, but I do think you have to look at that. So voluntary turnover, number one. but also, are you defining the vision altogether and following the entire vision of the C-suite or in the CEO to cascade that down to your team and allow your team to grow within their careers and showcase your team successes? And I really look at that as a definition of success for any leader. Is it's not about us, it's about our team, and it's about us celebrating their successes, their careers, and showcasing their particular projects all together.
Absolutely, providing that kind of empowerment, enablement, really investing in their
Mm-hmm.
careers, having those two-way conversations, really supporting. I think that is really, really important. And we're all learning too. We want to kind of teach that growth mindset and make sure that
Yeah,
we're investing in folks. In your 20 years of experience in
yeah.
HR and people, I'm sure you've seen a lot. And as you're continuing to iterate, even with the best intention, so not necessarily at your organization, so out in the universe or things you've seen, what are some common mistakes you're seeing companies make in their people strategy?
I think not thinking about people, that they also have lives outside of work.
Yeah, I agree.
And you know, and when and kind of going back to your question prior, is how you define success. It's not just about the people at work, and it's not about just our projects, what we do. And absolutely, I look at that. And when I kind of answer my question mostly about how do you define success in the work environment, but I actually look at it much more. How do we define success as leaders, to helping people make those particular decisions and support as mentors? Because I do think there's a responsibility in all of us to push it forward and help it push forward. And
Yeah.
so, one thing I do with my team all together, and this is people who have worked for me now and people who have worked for me 20 years ago. I listen, if I'm working with people all the time to set those professional goals, right? I've got my goals we need to reach that are coming down from the CEO of how we're going to reach that vision for the year. So I have mine, I set, and then I talk to my team about how they're going to add to that in terms of their particular professional goals. But one thing I add on to that every single time is, you've done professional goal setting. What are you doing personally in your life?
Mm-hmm.
And what are your 3 goals to move you forward as an individual? And I always tell people, you don't need to share it with me, but write it in an envelope, share it with somebody, because you need that accountability,
Right.
and keep that with you. Because if I can push you forward over here, but my job is also to push you forward over here and to think about your other aspects, not just work, but your life. And I do think that that's one thing as we grow, and is understanding this connection. And so, do I still see that as something that companies have to become better at? Absolutely. Do I think that that's actually one thing that COVID, when I go back to the positives of COVID, we were forced to. We had kids running around, we had dogs running around, we had quarantines, and absolutely everything in the world happening. And we had to embrace it quickly. And most of us realized we could still work, and we could find out what somebody's child looked like, and it was all good.
Yes.
And so, it was all good. So I look at that as it's something that is the positive aspect. And as we kind of move forward away from, returning to the workforce, that hybrid, how do we continue that and support and realize people do have lives, and that's a great thing?
That is.
And how do we support their work and their professional and personal goals together? And that's going to be different for everybody, right? I've always worked full time. I have 2. My children are 20 and 22 now, and that's always what I've done. But that's not everybody's choice, right? Some people say, I want to take a step back, and I've worked with people who've worked with on my team who say, you know what, I want to be part time. Or I've created job share arrangements with individuals, looked at part-time arrangements to help them through a couple of years, but they've decided to do that and come back to the workforce. It's going to look different for everybody, and that's absolutely great. And our job as leaders and as companies is to look at that. And this isn't just a women's issue, right? This is everybody's issue.
Right.
I've got a boy and a girl, and everybody. I think that's one of the other great things, that dads are getting much more involved, and that's fantastic. And that's fantastic for women too, in the workforce and as mothers. I speak as both. But that's the one issue I hope that we're going to continue to focus on, and that will continue to get great.
Yeah, supporting the full person inside and outside of work, really building that,
Hmm.
having those conversations about what those personal and professional goals are too, and really investing in that as well. I love that. I think that's so important, and recognizing that people wear a lot of different have a lot of different responsibilities as well, and are different parts of their lives as well as their careers. Lisa, is there anything that I didn't ask that you
Hmm.
want to share with folks who are listening, or underscoring one to two key takeaways you hope people bring with them?
That's a great question. I think my takeaways is continuing to move us forward together as people. And, I think as leaders within our profession is continuing to embrace all the great things that we've done together, but also with COVID, there's good too in there out there. Find those good that happened and continue to see how we bring those good and move us all forward.
I love that. Lisa, thank you so much for being on Reimagining Company Culture this afternoon.
Thank you, Christina.
Of course. And as a reminder for folks who are listening, at All Voices, we really believe in that employee feedback management as a requirement for the organization to succeed overall. Have a great rest of your afternoon, everyone.